everybody. I think we're getting started. We should be live. We're recording for anybody who's catching the replay, and I'm seeing lots of participants hopping on.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for making the time to be with us.
And for those of you who don't know Ben, he has graciously offered to help us moderate today, and he's going to be paying attention to the chat and helping to facilitate some of the conversations there.
Hello, everybody. I'll be keeping an eye on the clock.
Yes.
Trying to foster some interesting conversation. So,
Right.
Got somebody on the phone from Louisville, Kentucky.
Awesome. Thanks for joining, Hank. And I invite everybody to go ahead and add your name, where you're joining from. If you'd like to add your LinkedIn, we would love for people to use this as an opportunity to network and connect as well.
Yeah, so hello, Hank. Thanks so much. Mariam. Marnie, so great to see you. And if you guys can, over the call, you can go to your LinkedIn, go to your profile, copy the, link to your profile, and you can put it in there too. Hopefully by the end of the session, everyone leaves the call with a few new connections on LinkedIn. Great to see so many known names. So thank you. Thank you for making the time to join us.
Thanks for joining, Mark. I'm glad you're here. This is awesome. This is great. We're going to have some really fun engagement today.
Yeah, so before we get started, as people are joining us, just want to say hello to a few friends here. We have Alison Rojas, Ann Viveros, Audra Kirch, Christine Smalley. Welcome. Thank you for making the time. We have Mark, Marlene Rousseau. So nice to see you. Marnie, Megan, McIntosh, Osni. Obrigado, Osni. So many friends. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Excited. So many people, and people already from previous sessions, and wonderful. Welcome.
Hello from Nepal. I knew that we were going to get some international engagement as well, which is like, it's unfortunate that we couldn't do this event in person, and yet this is a great way for us to spread the word around the world and meet lots of people.
Wonderful. All right.
So Ben, do you want to kick us off? Maybe go over some Zoom etiquette for people who are newer to Zoom, if that's possible.
Sounds good. Welcome, everybody, to this Zoom call. First things first, this webinar is being recorded, so that's audio and video. If you don't want to be recorded, we will be taking questions through the chat, and I'm happy to read a question if you'd rather present it that way, if you want to get in touch with our panelists but don't want to be part of the recording. All participants are muted and off camera. We can bring you on camera if you're sharing a comment or question and do want to be able to, have a little bit of back and forth with our wonderful panelists. And if you do have a question in the chat, put a Q in front of it, just so it's easier for me to track, who's in what order. I have all kinds of Post-its and note cards and stuff at the ready to make that work. So I believe it's time for introductions at this point. First up, Luis Moreno is training a new generation of leaders to be more human. He has over 18 years of corporate experience in 7 Fortune 500 companies, and he leverages his experience in human-centered leadership and emotional intelligence to collaborate with other experts around the world to help foster workplace cultures that are healthier and happier. Sylwia works with clients who want to improve their relationships, either with their partner, children, their boss, or with themselves. She also helps clients improve their self-esteem and self-confidence and find more excitement in their lives. And finally, Tamara's passion is helping busy professionals align their values with their schedules, so they have time and energy for what matters most. She draws upon a background in psychology and integrative medicine, along with more than a decade of coaching and mindfulness experience to empower clients to create purposeful productivity and meaningful time. These three will be the experts today. I'm just here learning alongside everybody else. I believe Tamara will kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the interest of bringing a little bit of mindfulness, I want to invite everybody to participate in this short moment to arrive. And all that means is, for starters, I want everybody just to take the biggest breath you've taken all day. Let's take a couple more breaths. And as you take a few deep breaths, this process just helps us to settle in, get centered, and be fully present, because we gain the most from each experience when we're present in the moment. So I appreciate each and every one of you for being here, and I'm excited to get started. And I think we had earlier on, we had invited people to go ahead and share where they're joining from and your LinkedIn if you'd like. And I think we each wanted to share a little bit about something that we're looking forward to today. For myself, it's the opportunity to connect with others and to facilitate other people's connections. And how about you, Sylwia?
Yes, that's perfect. And I would like to start here with saying something about relationships. I'm so grateful to this digital world that I'm meeting so many people, and we all meet many people almost on a daily basis. And we have our relationships with, of course, our friends, families, and colleagues from work. And I do believe that most of us would like to improve at least one relationship. And I was thinking what to say today, and I would like to start with that the most important relationship that we have and we should care as number one is with ourselves. Why I'm talking about it? Because when we love ourselves, when we have respect and kindness and compassion for ourselves, this is what we can give to others. And why it is important? It is important that because we cannot change anyone. That sometimes we would like to change someone else. No, we have power to change ourselves. And there is something what we can do. We can influence others with our positive vibes, with our love. And then we can start working on improving relationships. And how we can do it? First, for understanding each other's needs, fears, worries, challenges, and desires. And how to do that? We need to listen attentively. Listen, being present with interest and compassion, without judging, criticizing, interrupting. And let's listen to understand the other person. And let's make them feel understood. Because when we talk, we cannot hear what they really want to say. So let's listen with interest, really. So effective communication is the key to every relationship in our both personal and professional lives. And for loving relationships, let's go to bed with smile and with a kiss. And when it's necessary, please, let's say sorry. Mm-hmm. That's so important for relationships. This is what I would like to share at the beginning. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sylwia. Thank you so much for starting us off with such a beautiful thought, which is the greatest love of all, right? Which is the love that we have for ourselves. I love that. And I want to also thank you, Ben, for taking the time to help us today and for that great introduction. I think, Sylwia, you bring up a great point regarding the, that we really cannot change other people, and what we can control is ourselves. And in fact, so the area that I want to share with the folks on the call today is around emotional intelligence. And interestingly enough, that the field of emotional intelligence actually starts with, three components related to ourselves, which is, self regulation, self understanding, right? So that we have to first understand who we are, what are our emotions, what are our feelings, right? So that self-awareness, self-understanding of our own, our own bodies and our own minds and hearts. The second part is self-regulation, which is the ability to, like, once we identify certain thoughts that we have, emotion, feelings, our behaviors, how do we control our own behavior, right? Sometimes when someone comes in and gives you feedback, let's say at work, somebody can share with you, maybe somebody that you trust, somebody that cares about you, and says, hey, Peter, John, Maria, I've noticed that, when you tend to do this or that, so the emotional intelligence gives us the ability to then first, understand that this is feedback that is coming to us, that, is honest and sincere, if it's coming from someone that you trust, and you have, credibility, has credibility with you. And then the other part is actually self-motivation, is the internal motivation to want to do something, maybe to improve. If you have that feedback, if someone comes to you and says, here's something that you could be doing differently, then that we have that internal, desire to do the thing. So that also applies for, so at work, we don't need for other people to be pushing us, to be telling us what to do, but rather we have that internal motivation, that self-motivation, that desire. And then the other two skills among the five, main components of emotional intelligence have to do with empathy. And, Sylwia mentioned that earlier, but empathy is, being interested, taking interest in other people's things. So, it's about understanding the situation of others without judging, like Sylwia was saying. And then the last one is social skills. One of the things that I've learned over the time by conducting this training is that people who can take the time to understand themselves better, to understand their emotions and sentiments, how they behave with certain things, and they can use the self-regulation to, kind of control what they're doing and be more aware and conscious about what they're doing and saying. And then they have the self-motivation to be better. They tend to have better social skills, which is that they feel, in overall, generally speaking, obviously, we know that, from a medical standpoint, there are some people that have some, difficulties to be interacting with other people. But overall, just in general, for most people, the more emotional intelligence that we can have, the easier it will be to interact with others, and the more likable that we have the potential to be more likable, which increases the chances that other people want to interact with us. So I'll be happy to talk today more about those components in more detail. Tamara.
So I'm sure that some people look at our topic today and you're trying to figure out, how does emotional intelligence relate to mindfulness, relate to relationships? But the things that Sylwia and Luis, some of the things that you've already shared are some of the key components of how I see that they relate. One thing is that a lot of people see mindfulness and meditation as the same thing. So to share a technical definition from John Kabat-Zinn, who's the father of mindfulness-based stress reduction out of UMass, he says that mindfulness is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. If we could just be more present and non-judgmental in our relationships, that alone would be a huge improvement in our personal and professional relationships. But there's also a lot of research that shows the benefits for all kinds of relationships. There was a recent study that said that higher levels of mindfulness predict happier and more satisfying relationships. And this shouldn't be too much of a surprise when you think about, the number one benefit of just being more present and attentive. But there's actual changes in the brain that happen as early as 8 to 10 weeks into meditating daily. These changes take place in the emotional regulation areas, and hopefully this isn't overly technical, but because I love science and kind of understanding the reason why things work, there's an area of the brain called the amygdala, which can kind of hijack us into that fight or flight or freeze mode. And this can be an issue when we are kind of triggered and we see our partners as threats to our well-being or our security. And this causes us to kind of shut down emotionally and attack with angry words or actions. So mindfulness actually shrinks the volume of the amygdala, and so that it has less power to set us into that threat mode. So you can imagine this can really help to get romantic couples out of that negative cycle of destruction and arguing or emotional distancing. Other changes in the brain also contribute to emotional regulation in general. So there's this connectivity between the prefrontal cortex, which is kind of like the executive, the CEO of the brain, and it can send a message to the amygdala, say, it's okay, we're not actually in a real threat situation. And so when the executive arm of our mind, instead of kind of that primitive lizard brain, can say, really, this isn't a real threat, like, let's just take a pause, that can be really powerful. And another part of that is just the awareness that we have. Mindfulness can enhance that self-awareness, so we can see what's happening in ourselves before maybe we go all the way down that rabbit hole and spiral into something negative. And that's another area of the brain that's associated with emotional regulation. And this can remind us that, maybe to take a step back and remember what our values are. Luis will be happy to know that mindfulness also helps us to be more empathetic, which is really important. Change is another area of the brain associated with empathy and compassion. And this helps us to have more understanding of our partner's perspectives and emotions and feel more compassion for them. And there are different types of mindfulness practices, like loving kindness, or sometimes in Western circles, they call it just like me meditation, when you can put yourself in somebody else's shoes and say, this person in front of me is just like me. They have the same desire for happiness. They have struggles every day, just like me. And we can see that whether we're, angry at our partner or having an issue with a colleague or a manager, if we can take a step back and see that this person is really a lot more like me than they are different. And then finally, just mindfulness can help us to create more gratitude and appreciation for our partner and, all the wonderful benefits that we get from our relationships. As much as I think many of us during COVID may have more arguments with our partners because we're together all the time, or our housemates in general. I have a daughter, so I can definitely be irritable at times, but taking a step back and seeing all the things that I'm grateful for. In particular, I'm happy that I'm not sheltering in place alone. There's a lot of benefit to these social and family relationships. So I'm definitely looking forward to taking a deeper dive into these different areas. One of the things that we found from these webinars is that people, they really appreciate the opportunity to connect with each other, the opportunity to contribute, and the opportunity to learn something. And as much as we are quote unquote subject matter experts, there's a lot of value to crowdsourcing, and we definitely don't have all the answers. And so we definitely invite people to share your experiences, share your comments, share your questions, whatever questions you have, somebody else probably has a similar question. So are there things, Sylwia or Luis, that you wanted to share before opening up to questions?
Luis, you're on mute.
Sure. I have some thoughts, but Sylwia, do you want to share? I know I was speaking before Tamara, but you want to share some thoughts, and then I'll go after you.
Oh, I'm looking forward to listen what people would like to share, what they would like to ask. So I'm just waiting for that. So Luis,
All right.
please go ahead.
So I was just, there's some thoughts there on Tamara, what you were saying, but I think I'm like Sylwia, looking forward to what the comments here from people. One just quick thought that I would say, or a couple thoughts, one quick is that referring to what you were saying earlier, Tamara, is that many times we worry more about what could happen than what actually happens, right? So like our thoughts about what something, can be, and we're all like in anxiety all night. We stay up all night and so nervous, thinking that something will happen, and then actually the reality is not as bad. So it's important to control that. And then the other thought, that I thought was interesting with Jay Sharif, that was saying that when someone gives him a compliment, he always takes the time to think about who may have influenced him on that skill that somebody complimented him on. And then he takes the time with mindfulness to think, okay, so for example, I don't know, like maybe I wrote something, like I wrote an article and somebody says, wow, I love your writing skills because blah, 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 or something like that. Then I would take a moment to think, okay, in my writing skills, who has been someone who has influenced me, who has helped me, and then take the time to actually write something to that person, call that person, contact that person. But it's also an appreciation exercise. Sometimes, we always appreciate people, but we don't mindfully, we don't like intentionally. We need to take the time to think, okay, who should I be thinking, who should I be grateful for, and then intentionally express that gratitude in the form of a little note, or if it can be a phone call. Sometimes I love what you were saying, Tamara, about our partners and our significant others, that hey, your partner wakes up in the morning and finds, maybe it's the little things, it's like picking up the, or whatever, acts of service. If that's something, if that's the language, if that's a love language that your partner speaks, then doing something that is valuable for your partner. But let's go ahead, Ben, and move forward with the first comments and questions.
Sounds good. The first question, by the way, it seems like there are two ways to ask questions. The ones we've received so far have gone to all panelists. There's also the option of sending your questions to all panelists and attendees. So if you send it to panelists and attendees, everyone can see it. We have received two just to the panelists. First question, which resonates with me, the first question overall is, how do you walk the fine line between trying to be empathetic with someone and staying authentic if you're not in full agreement?
Yeah, thank you. So this is a question from Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel, if you can tell us where you're connecting from, but that's a great question. And we get that question in our training all the time. And, my advice, what I always tell in my training is, this has to be about authenticity. It's like, when you meet with someone and you communicate effectively, like Sylwia was saying earlier, it is really about having the opportunity to express honestly kind of what you're thinking, to share your thoughts and perspective, and then to have the empathy and the ability, like both Tamara and Sylwia talked about, to listen right to what the person is telling you. So by the end of a conversation, really an effective communication doesn't have to be one where I convince you or you convince me. You don't have to change my mind. I don't have to change your mind. What has to happen, what an effective communication is when by the end of a call, both you, or by the end of interaction, both you and me have now expanded our knowledge, our understanding of the universe by having an additional perspective. So it's the beauty of perspective is, okay, you are somewhere, you are here, I am here, we're seeing the same situation differently. What I can offer you, what I can promise to you is that I'm going to listen attentively to what your view and perspective is of a situation authentically. So I really am listening to you, and I believe what, so if you tell me something, even if it's not my own situation, even if it doesn't match what I have experienced in my own lived experience, I have to take what you're telling me as true, because that is your truth, right? And I'll finish this comment with something that it's an analogy that I really like, right? Someone once told me that the benefit of perspective is that think of life as you have a big brick wall in front of you. So you have, on this side of the wall is you, on the other side of the wall, there's the world, right? And this wall doesn't let you see what's on the other side. So the best way to value perspective is that when someone gives you a perspective, you take it and you think of it as a window. And then you take that window and you put it on that wall. So now you have a new space to see to the other side. When the next person comes in and gives you another perspective, you take this second window, and window by window, perspective by perspective, you're going to start to, so this is a big wall and the windows are little, they're small, but one window won't let you see the entire world. But the addition of the multiple perspective that people can give you and they offer to you all the time, and if we have the mindfulness and the attention and the interest and the empathy to hear what people are telling us, we're going to collect all those windows and we're going to start putting them, and then this wall, all of a sudden, before we know it, we have this combination of windows that will let us see the what's on the other side. And one more final thing is that I'll give you this example. When the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, one of the things I've realized is when something terrible happens, when there's a tragedy and they're doing investigations, they talk to every person individually, and every person related to the case knew something. Everybody knew a little about it. But when they add those little, all the littles, when you put all the littles together, it tells you what was going to happen. So, right, nobody knew, because people that knew a little, they didn't feel that what they knew was enough, right? And then people came in, they told me this little thing, I didn't pay attention. The other person told me this little thing, I didn't pay attention. But if I had, with mindfulness and empathy, had the curiosity to listen to this little and to this other little, and just like windows, put them together, I could have predicted that something was about to happen, and then I could have acted, right? So that's now how a law enforcement agency like the FBI, when they hear a little, they take that little seriously, and then they connect it with the other littles to get that big window that let us see the world on the other side.
I'll just add to that. I think the idea of perspective is really important. That's part of empathy or compassion, is to be able to see other people's perspectives. And because one of my focuses with my clients is really time management, productivity, I believe that effective communication is efficient. And not being authentic, not being ourselves, isn't going to facilitate effective communication. It can actually create miscommunication, misunderstanding, which does not save time or energy for us. We can definitely be authentic and real and maybe even forceful in our opinions and sharing what we truly believe, and be open to really hearing and understanding what that other person is saying. These are definitely not mutually exclusive.
And if I may add something here, when we listen, the other perspectives, I know we have our principles, our beliefs, but when we listen, we can hear something what we didn't think of. So we can learn, we can grow, we can develop ourselves. That's for our personal growth. And when we are more open-minded, then we are more resilient to criticism. We accept more things easier as well. And we admire the other people actually. And you know what? That's great when we are able to listen And we be more likable. People would like to share with us because they know we don't attack them. And we can learn a lot from them. So having perspectives, developing them. I love this metaphor with the wall, Luis. It's very important. I fully agree with you, Tamara. So let's open our minds to various perspectives and let's welcome, let's embrace them even.
And I want to build on that, Tamara. And I know, Ben, that we have multiple questions here, so we're going to go with the question, but quickly, I want to build on something that Sylwia said that I thought was very important, is that one of the exercises that I've learned and that I use intentionally a lot is this exercise of, what if, when we talk with someone and the person tells us something that is like the opposite of what we think, I say to myself, that could be true, or that may be true, right? So that somebody tells me something here and I am here. So there's a whole gap between what I believe and what this other person is telling me. But because what the other person is telling me could be true, in my head, I do this exercise that says, okay, let me work with that being true. What are the obstacles that are not allowing me for that to be true? And what would have to happen for that to be true? For example, I am fortunate to be married to an amazing woman that I love with all my heart. And one of the things why I fell in love with her is because she's very, very smart. And so in my life is about always going back to her and telling her, I'm sorry, you were right, you were right, you were right. And at first it took me like months to do that. Now I do it sometimes on the same day. But she tells me something and then I am like totally opposed, it's not, you're crazy. And then I have to go back and apologize and say, you were right. So now what I do is I shorten the time. I don't need for months or weeks or to go by, but immediately when she tells me something that is the opposite to what I'm thinking, I start with, over time, she's always right. So maybe I'm the one that is wrong. Why am I thinking this way? What are my lived experiences? What is the information that, right? And then I force myself to see that perspective. And I can tell you that in almost all cases, I can arrive at where she is much faster, which is a benefit to me because now I don't waste time being lost on something that I was just like stuck on, but I move on to what really ends up being the truth. And then also for our relationship is better because then I show her respect by saying, I really see, your truth and I hear you attentively and I am willing and happy and thrilled to share with you and join you in this new knowledge that you're taking the time to share with me. Ben, let's go get some questions.
All right. The next question on the list actually probably follows up on that one. How to be mindful when crabby? Is allowing negativity to flow honestly important? I feel like, yeah. Who's up first?
I can address that. So I think one of the ways that we can utilize mindfulness is to separate ourselves from our emotions. That doesn't mean that we don't acknowledge them, but rather than saying, I am angry, or I am crabby, I am an angry person, what you do is you kind of separate it and say like, okay, what I'm feeling right now in my body feels like anger or irritability. However, this is just a current state. This will pass. This is how I'm feeling right now. This doesn't define who I am. It doesn't have to define my day or my interactions. I think one of the keys is to not wait until these important moments to practice. Like the more you're proactive, the more you have a consistent practice, as little as 5 or 10 minutes of meditation to create more mindfulness almost daily can be hugely beneficial, so that when we get to these moments where we're feeling crabby, we can create some distance, some perspective, look back, okay, what's really going on, and hopefully put a pause between our emotions and kind of our knee-jerk reaction. And so the idea, one of the ways to think about it is, rather than reacting, responding in a way that's more mindful, more conscious. I've definitely had moments where I've felt really stressed, and I'm not 100% aware of that in the moment until my daughter asked for something, and like literally 5 minutes before I hopped on the call, my daughter had put together a 1-minute video bio, and she's like, "Mom, can I show you this?" And my first response was, or reaction was like, "I can't right now because I have to get to my next meeting." And then I was like, it's 1 minute. Like, I could even be 1 minute late to our pre-meeting so that I can be present with my daughter, who showed me this little video of how she's going to introduce herself to the class and kind of her bloopers. And she's like, "I think I'm just going to keep it as is. It's really funny." But rather than, in another moment where I might just be like, "I don't have time for this. Like, I don't have time for your silly video, like, because I'm more important and I have more important things to do and more important people to be with." When the reality is, our loved ones are the most important relationships. And so just taking a breath, taking a pause whenever we want to react in a certain way, maybe reconsider, is this the best response? Can I just take another breath and say, I can definitely spare 1 minute with my daughter to share in her excitement. And so just try to take a mindful pause. And the more you practice this, meditation, like medicine and law, is a practice, and we never get perfect at it, but we can get better over time. So I hope that's helpful, Laura.
I would like to add here something very important for me, is to accept those so-called negative emotions, because they are not actually negative. They give us a certain message, what needs to be changed or improved. So let's understand those emotions and accept them, thank them even. Thank you, you are giving me a signal that something needs to be changed. And that's very important. And the other thing, Tamara, when you said, for you is maybe like you said, of course, not that silly video, but for your daughter, this is the word. This is her big moment. Yes. And that's what, reminds me about giving a smile. When you smile at someone, maybe this is the only smile the person received on that day. So that's actually what I wanted to say about it, really. And nothing is permanent. We cannot be angry permanently as well. So let's know it, and let's manage our emotions. Indeed, let's accept, not deny.
Yeah, and I absolutely, so I totally agree with both of you, Tamara and Sylwia. And one of the things I wanted to pick up from what I said earlier, connecting into Tamara's story, is that really I invite everyone on the call to get interested in emotional intelligence, because the emotional intelligence, our ability to understand more about ourselves and our emotion, can help us with social skills and relationship building. So for example, going back to the example of Tamara, right? I love what both Tamara and Sylwia said, that for you, it's like, you're in your thing, you have your meeting, and then, so for your daughter, she's coming in and she just wants to show you something that is 1 minute. So it's almost like this thing that we have been trained and conditioned since we were in school and when we're at work, about focus on yourself, like focus on your own goals and on, like achieving, getting, accomplishing, moving forward, getting, so we're in project mode all the time, right? But what I would say is that one way, in going back to what Sylwia was saying earlier about we cannot change other people, but we have control on ourselves. And one beautiful gift that we can give to the world is the gift of kindness and generosity. And when we think of generosity, one way to be generous is you can get your checkbook or your money and give money. That's one way to be generous. But there are many other ways to be generous. And you can be generous with your time. You can be generous with your kindness, and you can be generous with your attention, right? So in this case, if your daughter comes in, right, that's the world to her. It's so important. So being generous with that gift of time and attention. And what I would say is that really with self-motivation, we can do anything. We can choose to be anything we want in this world and in life. And my one advice that I would say to everyone on the call today, in this world, where we can choose to be anything we want. Let's choose to be kind, and let's choose to be better people. And one way to be better people is to take some of the attention that we have on ourselves. Let's not be so focused on ourselves, and then let's focus more on the person that is right in front of us, so we can give the gift of empathy, the gift of time, the gift of attention, right, to other, so that we can have better relationship with other. And I'll find, I'll share a final comment. So I saw my uncle Omar is on the call here today, so I salute you. So greet my uncle. And one of the things, so I have a great affection for my uncle. He's one of my favorite uncles. I love him so much. And I was reflecting on what were the things that he as an uncle did to to earn really my love and my respect and my loyalty to him. And one of the things that I always remember is that since I was a little kid, every time that I had an opportunity, every time I had a question, I had many questions as a kid, and I went to different people and I asked questions, but many people were on project mode. They were on a rush. They needed to get somewhere, they were always running. And people didn't have time for me. But someone who didn't have time for me either, but made the time for me, who made a pause in his life and who sat down with me, was my Uncle Omar. And so any question that I would ask him about anything, about things, about our family, about life, about love, about anything, the existence, the universe, he will sit down with me and say, sobrino, uncle, nephew, nephew, here is what's happening. Here's the situation. And it was beautiful. It was like, I remember those moments. They were special moments because he was giving me that gift of a generosity, the kindness, his love. He was taking the opportunity not only to answer my question, because he provided truthful, honest, and open information about what I needed to understand, but he also took an opportunity to, in his voice, through his message, to tell me, I'm here with you. I care about you. You are important. And so important are you to me that I'm making this pause. Nothing else in the world matters to me most than this moment here with you. So today, I love my uncle. I collaborate with him. I learn a lot from him. And I'm just proud of being his nephew, because his ability to stop, take a moment, and make the person in front of him the most important person in the world for that time. Thoughts, comments, more questions, Ben. We have more questions.
Actually, I was wondering if this would be the right time to introduce the breakout sessions.
Okay.
That'll be part of this conversation.
Yeah, let's do that. In the interest of people having more of the opportunity to connect, I'm going to share a couple of questions in the chat. And this will just be an opportunity. We're probably going to do groups of 3 or 4, depending on how that works out. So questions to share your answers to: what are your takeaways so far, or an aha moment, or what's been your experience with emotional intelligence or mindfulness in your relationships? So I'm going to put that.
And this is a great, as we talk about relationships, there are people on this call from different parts of the US and different parts of the world. Take an opportunity to interact with someone you didn't know, and then, take interest in taking the person's information, follow up, connect with them on LinkedIn, Instagram, on the social media. And then, these are conversations that, that matter. You are on this call for a reason, because this is a theme that is important to you. You're interested in being a better person. Everyone on this call has an interest in being a better person. So connect with those folks directly, and get their information, follow up with them. And it's an opportunity today to create some new friendships and some new relationships that we hope you follow up on.
And it's, as we're talking about this, I assumed that we had the feature of doing breakout rooms, and it might be that we don't. So bear with me, since I'm the one in charge of the breakout rooms. Just looking at the options, it may very well be, if someone's super savvy with Zoom and you want to pop in related to webinars. I know that Jesus has a lot of experience, since he's helped out with a lot of
Yeah,
Luis's webinars,
it's,
generally
that's
there's
on
like a
the,
more option, and then we can break out into rooms. Um,
do we have
but looks
Jesus
like we
on the
may
call?
actually not have that option. So I don't know if there would be a good alternative other than people just having the option to, maybe drop in the chat a takeaway or something that really resonated with you. So
Yeah.
someone, Avanti says, I think the breakout option is for meetings and not webinars. Thanks, Avanti. It looks like you're right, because I'm not seeing that. So unfortunately, that was something I was looking forward to everybody being able to do in a smaller group. So I think we will have to skip that. Luis, Sylwia, what do you think about people may just, you can come off mute, ask to come on camera if you want to share an experience. Hank is recommending we do a part 2. Yeah, I'd love to do that. And definitely, I know that each one of us would love the opportunity to connect more with you one-on-one. Ben, can you give us kind of a pulse check on how many questions we have lined up?
Yeah, so quickly, Tamara, just don't build on what you said. So for everyone on the call today, we have over 30 people on the call here live. If the content that we have shared so far, if you have experiences in your own life, something that, rang a bell and you'd like to share, so this doesn't have to be a question, if you'd like to share something about your own experience, either at work or in your own life that relates to these themes, please go ahead and indicate to Ben in the chat. And you have the ability, we have the ability to actually unmute you, so that you can either come through your voice, or actually we can bring your video on so that you basically become one more panelist invited for a few minutes. And so I would love to see some of you that are with us today to come on video and share with us. Is this, what do you think? Is this good, bad? Do you like it? Do you appreciate it? Do you have any experiences? What are your thoughts? So I invite you to join us. We'd love to see your face. If you're camera ready. I was not, and I'm on the camera anyway.
Same here. I'm just glad I shaved this morning. As far as questions go, as Luis indicated, please mention in the chat if you'd like to join us to share an observation or a question. For now, I will, let's see. One question that keeps coming back that resonates, again, with me is sort of how do we put this into practice? Not, the high level, once you have mindfulness, here's how you activate it, but what are some of the easiest mindfulness and meditation techniques that we can learn and practice every day? And what's the importance of that intentional practice for moving from understanding and agreeing with these ideas towards being able to access and implement them in real time?
Oh, thank you,
How
Ben.
do we start, and why does it matter?
And so Tamara, you'll be answering that question, but I want to share a quick story about that. So in our training, it's about emotional intelligence, although we don't speak directly about mindfulness, we don't call it out, obviously these things are related. So one of the things we have is a point around allow for time and space. And allow for time and space is that sometimes, when people come to you and they're like overcharged with emotion and they're like, training with all these things, we need to, like Tamara was saying, with mindfulness, stay in the moment, calm down, and allow for time and space for things to happen. So one day the very gratifying things about giving training on emotional intelligence and human-centered leadership is that people give feedback and say, wow, I apply something that I learned in your training and I had a great result. So one day, someone who had been in my training came and said, hey, Luis, I'm very excited because thanks to the training, I had a great experience. I was like, okay, yeah, what happened? I said, well, I was at home. So my roommate was really, really upset, was very mad, and, came to me, and guess what I told her? And guess what I said to her? And I said, no, I don't know. What do you do? It's like, I didn't say anything. I follow your training where it says allow for time and space. I listened attentively to what the person had to say. She spoke for a long time and she told me a lot of things. And at the end of that, guess what I said to her? And I mean, guess what she said to me, son? Guess what she said to me? So what did she say to you? She said, say thank you. She said thank you for listening to her. And she also said, I'm sorry. She apologized because she said that she was going through a tough time and she was under stress, that some things at work were not going well, and that she was just overwhelmed with a lot of stress, and that she, you know, just kind of exploded. And she wanted to tell me, thank you for listening with attention, for being understanding, for not judging, and for being there for me. And then she said, you know what I did at the end? I said, what did you do? I hug her. And, you know, it was a great experience. But, you know, and you can be hugging people around. But in this case, you know, obviously, if this is a person that is someone that you have a great relationship with, is a relative, you know, a loved one, and you have that opportunity to, you know, come close physically and give a hug if you can, that is a great opportunity. Again, that started with someone yelling and ended in two human beings connecting with the most important piece, which is you're going through a tough time. I'm here for you. I listen to you. I care about you, and I support you. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to be with you. Let's do this together. And then now for the real technical knowledge, Tamara.
Thanks, Luis. Yeah, I love what you had to share there. I think in particular, when we are kind of like going up against each other, if we see situations as, you know, I'm gonna win and they're gonna lose, then it's not a win-win situation. Like when we start to see it as a competition, everybody loses. And just having the ability, rather than thinking about, well, you know, I have this comeback or I'm going to get the last word in, thinking about maybe the best action is no action. Maybe what I need is to take a break. And what I've found in relationships is that, you know, there's this kind of dance where someone pushes forward, the other person goes back. And when someone is more avoidant and they don't want to talk about it, the more of the aggressor is like, I want to talk about this right now, because we have this discomfort with things not being resolved. But what can be helpful is to take a mindful pause and let the other person be aware. Like, you're not walking away from the conversation. It does matter to you, but you know that proceeding with an argument or conversation at that time is not going to be fruitful. And if you want to be more skillful in your relationship, you have to recognize when these moments come and hopefully have an agreement in advance of how to fight fairly, and just say, you know, I have a lot of emotions right now. I'm really upset. I feel like what I say or do right now is potentially harmful to our relationship. And this is an important conversation, but I want to revisit this. I need to be by myself. I need to reflect, or maybe I just need to, you know, be away from you momentarily as to not escalate things. And because I care about this relationship, I want to take this pause. Do you think we could talk about it tonight after dinner? Or, you know, don't just leave it so people are wondering, like, when are we going to talk about this? Is really important. That can create a lot of anxiety for the other person. Say, can we revisit this in an hour? I'm going to go for a walk. I just need to take a pause, and come to an agreement, the two of you, and then you have some opportunity to reflect. In terms of daily practices, you know, as much as some people say, you should be doing 20 or 30 minutes or an hour, there is plenty of benefit that has been seen with as little as 5 or 10 minutes at a time. A lot of the research has shown benefits from 5 minutes of meditation for 2 weeks in terms of improving our self-confidence and doing better in a job interview. So you don't have to meditate for 20 years in order to see the benefits. And there are lots of great apps. Insight Timer is completely free. It's about 67% of people that are using a meditation app right now are on Insight Timer. So they have a greater market share than all of the other apps put together. Personally, I also really enjoy 10% Happier, which is Dan Harris from ABC. I think he's a great example of the fidgety skeptic who realized the benefits of mindfulness to kind of quiet the inner critic in his head. And as he describes it, not only be 10% happier, but a little bit less of a jerk to himself and others. That's a paid app, but lots of great content there. Lots of people like Headspace, Calm. So, I mean, technology is your friend when it comes to mindfulness, and just creating a daily habit. A lot of these apps will allow you to create streaks, so you know that you're consistently doing this. I think the first step is to really make this a priority. And Luis knows with everything that's important, it goes onto my calendar. So, you know, meditation is still on my calendar every day, and I don't get to move it over to the next day until it's completed. And sometimes it's also helpful to have some external accountability. Maybe you share with your partner or a friend. I've decided I'm going to meditate every day for the next 30 days and just see what happens, see how that feels. I'm happy to be your accountability partner if you want to start your new meditation journey. I'm also doing a course on mindfulness and time management or productivity. So I'm happy to share more information on that as well.
So let me add, I fully agree with everything what you said now, Luis and Tamara. I wanted to add something, is that sometimes there are disagreements and quarrels, the conversations escalate because people really don't know why we are screaming at each other. They don't know what's the purpose of the conversation. And we know that women and men are different, and men, they are solution driven. So when a woman starts talking, he thinks, oh, she has a problem, I need to solve it. No, maybe she just wants you to listen. Maybe she needs a hug, some affection. So the purpose of every conversation like that is really important. Another thing I would like to add, that those quarrels sometimes are also for something really not important. Let's leave it. Because, you know, for a little thing, and then you think, why actually are we quarreling? Then you finally don't know why, right? And there is another thing I wanted to say, that children, when they are children around, they observe everything and they feel, even if they don't say it. So, yes, I fully agree. Find another time for the conversation and finish it and say, I love you and I want the best for you, if it is between partners or families or children and parents. Say, I love you. And give a hug.
And this is applicable in our professional relationships as well. I mean, if we notice that we're kind of riled up and our emotions are really heightened, that's a good time to step back and not say something regrettable to a client or customer or coworker. Just say, you know, this is an important conversation and I want to give it some more thought before I respond. You may even send that via email. When you get an email and you're like, whoa, what is this person trying to say? Acknowledge it. Say, I understand what you're saying. I want to think about this. I'm going to give you a more thoughtful reply tomorrow after I've had some time to think about it. Again, that pause is really powerful.
I totally agree. And I want to quickly, we have some great greetings that multiple people are sending us here, but Hank Enright has been wonderful from Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you, Hank, for all of your participation through the chat today. Victoria Williams from Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you, Victoria. She's with American Express. And then, you know, Mark, Osni, Kala from Los Angeles are sending us their LinkedIn. So go ahead, make sure that, go ahead and go into the chat box and look at the various, the people have shared their LinkedIn, profile so you can connect with them. We have people that are joining us from Minneapolis in Minnesota. We have Daniel Rodriguez from Minneapolis, and Viveros, Pravesh, and then Audra from Minneapolis as well. So great representation here from Minnesota, Nepal. So a lot of folks that have shared their LinkedIn profile. Thank you for that. Let's see. So we have which aspects of emotional intelligence you personally and find most important with your sweet reasons. Please share your experiences too. Which aspects of emotional intelligence you personally find most important? I can answer that, but before I do that, Sylwia and Tamara, which aspects you both trained? Well, Tamara, you've taken emotional intelligence training multiple times, I think. So what aspects of emotional intelligence you personally find most important? This is Prabesh Satyal is asking us this question.
All right, I have done several of Luis's trainings, and he has done several of mine as well. Apparently, we still have a lot to learn from each other. I would say, you know, there's so many important aspects of emotional intelligence, and you know, mindfulness is one of the ways to improve our emotional intelligence. In particular, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is self-awareness, because it's awareness that helps us to pause. It's awareness that motivates us to change. So that's what I would say.
Sylwia?
Love and empathy.
Empathy, I love it. So for me, my favorite is empathy as well. And I want to share something with you all today. When people write to us emails or communication, or, you know, through LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, it's interesting that maybe you receive an email that says, hey, I've been, you know, sorry that I hadn't written to you because I've been busy. I'm writing a book, you know, and right now I just wrote the last chapter. I met with the editor, and so I've been very busy with that. So I was wondering if you had time to talk tomorrow. And we focused on the question that the person is asking, do you have time to meet tomorrow? And then we answer, yes, I can meet at 4. But even though the question was what prompted the action and the answer, there was something before the question that was very important. The person is writing a book and finished the last chapter and is meeting with the editor. And so one of the exercises that I do, and because multiple people have asked for a specific, you know, tips. So Prabesh is asking, you know, for a specific experiences. So one of the things I do is when people write an email to me, I think that everything that they said in that email was intentional. Everything had importance, everything has meaning. So I respond to everything. So my answer to that email would be, hey, you know, thank you for your note. So nice that you're writing a book. Wow, I'm sure it's going to be a great one. I look forward to reading it. So great that you just finished the last, you know, chapter and you met with your editor. I hope that the meeting went well and that, you know, you're going to publish soon or something like that. And then, yes, I have time to meet tomorrow at 4. Now, it seems, and I've talked to multiple people, and there are people who disagree and they argue back. It's like, no, that's crazy. That's too slow for communication. And I understand it because people have different communication style. But I am talking about communicating with empathy, which means to, again, with mindfulness, to take an interest in what the other person is telling you, and then actually responding to everything that, you know, I mean, it doesn't have to be every little thing, but that's major if somebody's writing a book. So, you know, you address those things and you respond to them because it is a way to communicate that you're listening to them. So for example, one of the things that we give in our training is how does this apply to the digital world? So sometimes you post, and this connects also with diversity and inclusion as well, actually. Sometimes you post something on Facebook, boom, you post something. And then somebody comes in and write, oh, wow, you know, so I went to Germany and I put some pictures of me in Germany. And then somebody posts, wow, that's great that you went to Germany. I hope you had a great time in Germany. And another person says, wow, you and your family look great. Blessings to you and your family. Love you guys. And then a third person says, oh, where was that picture taken? Well, my brain says action. Somebody just asked a question, so I need to get in. And so the person will go and will reply to that person that asked a question, right? So, but if you think about it from an empathy standpoint and from a diversity and inclusion, is that what about the other people? They didn't ask you a question, but they took the time to tell you something that was important. Somebody told you, you know, blessings to your family. Somebody says, so nice that you went to, you know, so like if you don't selectively just like answer some and not others, but be generous with everyone. It doesn't have, you don't need to spend 10 or 15 minutes on it, you know, just like take a minute to everyone, like say thank you. You know, how fast can you write thanks or thank you or I really appreciate it? It doesn't even take a minute. But what you're doing is you are acknowledging people or say, yes, I see you. I know you're out there. I care about you, right? And I'm interested in you. For example, in Instagram, I have seen people that have millions of followers that follow 100 people. The other day I saw an account on Instagram that had that follow only one person. And that one person that it followed was the person. So like the person had two accounts. So the only person that I follow is myself, right? So that kind of says, well, you know, and there, you know, people have different strategies on social media. But what I would say is that when people come to you, they show interest in what you're doing and they follow you. And then like, because I write articles and I send articles to people, people send me articles too and say, hey, Luis, I read your article. I liked it. Here is one that I wrote. I cannot take the attitude to say, yeah, but I am the writer. So I'm the one who writes. And if you write, that's your problem, because I'm not gonna, I am a unidirectional writer. I write for others to read, but I am not here to read anyone's nothing right now. So my responsibility as a writer is I have to take the time to read other, and not only to read it with attention, to read it with interest, and then I actually respond. And here, I don't say, I get a lot of people that say, great writing, that was great. And it's like, okay, I don't even know if they really read it. So what I do is when I read something from someone, when I respond, I say, wow, that was a great writing. One of the things that I liked was this, and I liked the way that you explained, blah, blah, blah. But it is about giving specifics about what the person is writing in this particular example, just to say, I took the time, I paid attention to you, what you're doing is important to me. And then, you know, that's a way to connect with other people. So that was a long answer to one question, but Ben, let's take some more questions if you can help us with that, please.
Sounds good. Question I've been curious about is, I believe, from Allison, about how you can use emotional intelligence and mindfulness from a distance. For instance, when you're creating media or public relations strategies. I think your talk about Facebook posts might have addressed that from more of a personal angle. But
I want to share two examples there in terms of like how you can share like emotional intelligence from a distance. I get a lot of people that send me an email, say, hey, you know, we're going to talk, the meeting is tomorrow or whatever, you know, the meeting is tomorrow. And so let's suppose that the person is in, you know, in Europe, you know, but this is not Sylwia. You don't do this, Sylwia, but someone in Europe sends me a note and say, hey, we have a meeting tomorrow, you know, and it's at 6 p.m. Europe time. And it's like, well, you know, you are in Europe, I am not, but you know, you want me to be in your meeting. So it's like, you know, you have to think about me. So it's like the person puts it on me to be figuring out what is the time and stuff, but, and they want to sell me something, for example. So one way to show, you know, emotional intelligence and empathy is a generosity to say, well, if I'm interested in you and I want you to join the call and I want you to be in this meeting, I can take a minute to see what time that would be in your time, and I can put that, you know, in your time. So, and then it's like my time is irrelevant. What's important is your time, right? So that's one example of a little thing that you can do. I want to share also another example, and I wonder if my friend Carla Serpa is on the call today. She always, I told her this example some time ago, and she says, Luis, you gotta always say that example. But somebody gives me a business card, right? Hey, Luis, you know, here's my business card. You can contact me. Okay, so then the next time I run into the person, I say, hey, you know, the other day I wanted to talk with you, and I called the number on your card, and it was not a working number. The number didn't work. And the person says, oh, yeah. What happens is that I don't call myself. I say, no, you should, because you should not give me a business card that has a number where you are asking me to do something that you yourself have not done. So empathy and you know, emotional intelligence here is a generosity to say, okay, if I'm going to create one business card that has a number where I'm telling people, if you need help, here is a number where you can call me, that before I print that thing and I give it to anyone, I need to call the number myself. I call, and then when my number rings, I talk to myself, and oh yeah, I'm ready now. And then I can go ahead and give that card to other people, right? It's the same thing when you have, for example, from a user experience standpoint, if you have a website, go through your own website, click on the things on the, you know, so you have, if you have an account on Instagram or LinkedIn, visit your own LinkedIn account. I've said, the other day, I said to someone, hey, you know, I looked you up on Google and look at what showed up, and it's like, oh, well, I don't Google myself. Well, you should Google yourself because other people are Googling you, so you might as well just Google yourself. But it's basically trying to understand, you know, what are other people seeing in my pages, in my website, on my LinkedIn profile, on my, you know, what do they see when when they Google me, what, right? And then actually go ahead and make the experience better for other people, right? Is that customer journey, is that user experience. I make it better by making sure that I go through the things I'm asking my other people to go through.
I want to second that. Luis does a wonderful job of when he promotes his events, he'll put things in Central Time, Costa Rica time, Madrid time, and it helps a lot. When Sylwia and I met for the first time, she's in the Netherlands, so I had to look up that we have, I think, a 7-hour time difference. But it's just these small things that we can do when we connect, is just to let people know. I talk to people all over the country and they're sometimes not aware of what time zone they're in for some reason. But these small steps can be wonderful. I think the other way that we can kind of share our mindfulness, or if that's part of kind of your brand. I was talking with my marketing strategist a couple days ago, and I was like, I'm just not that bubbly person that does this really fun stuff on Instagram. And I realized, like, that's okay. That's not my brand. I think you can see I'm pretty low key. That's just part of who I am. That's part of being authentic. So bottom line, whatever promotions or marketing that you're doing, be authentic and show the parts of yourself that are important to you and that bring value to others.
Absolutely.
And stand in the shoes of the other person. Someone recently also asked me, in Tasmania, boom, I go and check. I know Africa is more or less the same zone. So I say, I do the same. Indeed, go to their minds. Yeah. By the way, about conversations, go to the mind of the other person. That's why understand what they really want to say, what is there, why something annoys them. Understand. So I love what you're saying, Carl. Definitely.
Hey, so we have about 20 minutes left of the call, but I want to make sure that someone comes and join us today. So, those brave souls out there, let's see if we can have someone come in and join us as panelists. So anyone on the call today, that's okay. Share whatever you want, even if, English may not be your native language. I know we have people from various countries in the world that are joining today. Even if you understand English but don't speak English, say it in your language. If your language is Spanish, I can translate that. Sylwia can translate
Polish and Dutch.
Polish. Okay.
If someone would like to come on camera or come off mute, you can raise your hand and Ben can notice that and maybe put you to the front of the line.
Absolutely. We'd love to get some more voices here today.
Just to double check, Avanti in the chat is letting us know this is a webinar, so we, the attendees, cannot start our videos. I see 3 attendees with their hands up.
Okay.
So Prabesh, Shirley, and Hank.
Okay.
I think that might indicate they're interested in talking with us, and Tamara is the host.
So Tamara, you want to see if you can make them, so promote them.
Prabesh had his hand up, he put it back down.
Should I start with Prabesh?
Pravesh's hand has gone down. Oh, and it's back up. Excellent.
Okay, here's Prabesh. Okay, so so basically unmute, and now Prabesh, you can activate make sure your video is on, and we'll have you.
Or this is fine if you just want to share your photo. It's great to see your face regardless.
Yes.
Sorry, I just couldn't get the video on right now. It's so pleasant. Thank you so much, Sylwia, and all the panelists, Luis and Ben and Tamara. You guys really welcomed me on the comment box as well on LinkedIn. And it was a big, huge pleasure at 10:58 p.m. from Nepal. I'm listening to you guys, and it's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabesh, and thank you for joining us from Nepal. What time is it for you right now, Prabesh, in Nepal?
It's 2 minutes away for 11 p.m.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking this time so late at night to join us on this conversation. Thank you for the great comments that you're putting on the chat box. We're reading them, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for being with us today. I appreciate it. And I look forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn and starting a friendship from today.
Sure. I'm more pleased to be in a friend circle with you guys all, especially Luis with such a huge experience here in this session. I'm amazed.
Thank you. All right. Thanks so much. All right. We have the wonderful first visit from Pravesh from Nepal. That's awesome. Who else? We have more hands up. Did you say Shirley or who else had their hands up?
I see Shirley higher on my list. I have no
Okay.
idea whether that
Yes,
means she
Shirley
raised
has
her
been
hand
active,
first.
sharing multiple comments on the chat box. Hi, Shirley. So you
Hank,
can
you're
go
on
ahead
deck.
and unmute your microphone and then just make sure that you can open your camera. And then Ben, Tamara, and Sylwia will be happy to take your comments. And so,
I'm attempting to unmute.
okay.
Shirley, that might be on your end.
So let's make sure that on your end you are not muted, Shirley, and then we'll unmute you from our end. Yeah, I think we have to unmute them first, Tamara, and then they. And in the meantime, while we bring Shirley on, I want to thank you for the kind comments on the chat box. It's just very humbling to read such generous and kind comments. Thank you for doing that. And let's see, Hank. Hank has been very active. Thank you, Hank. Pravesh, Danielle. Thank you, Danielle. Danielle had to run.
Sorry to interrupt. Shirley seems to be having problems with her battery on the device, so
Okay.
perhaps let's have Hank step in while Shirley finds a.
All right. Let's see what other hand do we have up? We have a wonderful comments here, and it's just very. We're very appreciative of all the comments. And we have, so Christine Smalley sends us here, an easy option for a virtual meditation coach is Pitch Mindfulness, also a local startup. So thank you for doing that. And the link is on the chat box so you can visit it. And Marnie Safar talks about transcendental meditation. She's been doing that from college and it's an integral part of her life. I know Marnie, and that has to be an amazing meditation because Marnie is always a very centered person that is always so kind and so, you know, so smart. It is always a real pleasure to interact with Marnie. Thank you, Marnie. Okay, do we have any hands up then, Ben? Someone that we can bring up?
What about Hank?
Okay, what about Hank that has been very active today? There you go, Hank. So great to see you.
All righty, unmuting my microphone. Thanks everybody, gracias, dziękuję, for this wonderful presentation. And this reminded me, especially when you guys said the person in front of me is just like me. It reminded me in customer service training, what we do when we resolve the customer concern, I put in the notes last. And last works okay. It's listen, which is the first thing you want to do. You want to listen to that customer, apologize, solve, and thank. But when I moved to another company, they added a B at the beginning, which also resonated with me. So instead of only listening, apologizing, solving, and thanking, the first B is for believe. You have to believe that person. So that empathy and that rings so beautifully with the person in front of me is just like me. I'm going to borrow that and use it next time I have an opportunity to share that model. So thanks so much, and dziękuję, gracias.
I love that. Thank you so much, Hank. This is just a perfect example of the kind of crowdsourcing because there is so much wisdom to be obtained from the group. I love that. Thank you.
And Hank is joining us from Louisville, Kentucky. Beautiful place there. I love what is 4th Street that you are there on the street with the bands and everything.
4th Street Live. Under
4th
COVID,
Street
a little bit
Live.
different. So we carry it in our hearts.
Amazing place to party there. Okay, very good. Thank you, Hank. Thanks so much. And thanks for all of the wonderful wisdom that you have shared in the today, you know, through your video, I mean, through your voice and also through the writing that you've done. I love last and blast, and I will definitely use it. It is similar to other models that we use as well. All right, wonderful. Who else do we have? Anybody else that wants to join us? We have only about 10 minutes left, so wanted to make sure that, you know, people have the opportunity to come and visit with us, just like Hank did it and like Pravesh earlier.
I just wanted to take a moment to shout out Allison Rojas, who's been fairly involved in the chat. She was the one who asked, I'm assuming pronouns a lot, and if I get them wrong, I apologize. Allison was the one who asked us about empathy at a distance. And the most recent comment in the chat says, I think when you're practicing emotional intelligence from afar, it's important to keep an individual person in mind. In that way, you can move from general communication to a more personal one, which incorporates the research you've done and your understanding of needs. And obviously, Allison, if you want to raise your hand, join us on the chat. It'd be great to hear more. I just thought.
Thank you much, Allison. Where is Allison? Where are you joining us from, Allison? If you can share that. And then I have, so multiple people have said, I think it was Avanti who let us know that for some reason they are not able. So Avanti explained that they are not being able to start their own videos. So I wonder, Tamara, if something there on your end you have to give them.
So Allison, you should be all ready.
Yes, I think my microphone is on. Thanks for inviting me in to participate. I've really enjoyed all of your insight. And I think there's been an awful lot of confirmation of what it is that I've been learning in other areas and how it really connects with me personally and professionally. So I'm calling from Chicago. I recently moved from the Twin Cities and have relocated here for the time being. And my real interest is in impact, right? So how is it that we can promote and contribute to a broader social impact that helps to change people's lives? And in some cases, these relationships, you're actually trying to connect with groups at the same time. And as a facilitator, I have a lot of facilitation experience. I know that it's important, you're constantly paying attention to the mood of the group, how things are, what's the overall temperature of the room that you're in, and keeping in your back pocket what it is that you're trying to help create. And that's often a process that allows people to do what they want to do and what they need to do respectfully. I hope that's clear.
Yes.
But yeah, I really thank you so much for answering my question, and it just really kind of regroups me to it's all about the individual. Whether you're working with a lot of individuals at the same time, keep in mind some representative of that and maybe some kind of differences within that group, so you can really use your emotional intelligence and mindfulness to connect. So
Thank you, Alison. Thanks you so much. Fantastic participation. And as we have maybe just a few more than 5 minutes there until we get to the end of the call, I'd like to say that what you bring in something very important, which is the impact in two ways. One, I think in the way that you mentioned it, which is about the impact that we have right in the community, in our organizations. For example, I myself, I am training a new generation of leaders to be more human. And what I do is I visit, I get the opportunity to be invited by organizations where I go and I have conversation with senior leaders to talk about how things could be different. We talk about how things have been, but then we talk about how things could be in the future. And now we have a new generation that comes in, that they have different values, they want different things. And in the past, it was all about how much we could pay someone in compensation was keen and would draw. So for baby boomers, a great compensation, and maybe was a bad environment, but the compensation was great. What we're seeing now is that with the new, what the millennials and what the Gen Zs are looking goes, it's just something else, right? They want to have something that is more meaningful for them. For example, research is showing that the company that they, the brand of the company they work for matters, and not only about like, oh, I work for, like the recognize that company doing for things that matter to me. If I care about climate change, what is that company? What are the manufacturing processes that company is using? What labor are they using? Are they using child labor? Are they, right? How are they responsible with water, with the natural resources? And then newer generations are more interested in working for companies that are actually visibly doing something and having an impact for the world. So we as our organizations need to understand that first is, which is all with the events about, here in Minneapolis, right, with the protest and the social unrest, that some companies chose to stay quiet. It's like, well, there's kind of like a revolution going on. Our strategy is going to be stay quiet, wait until the storm goes away, and then you come up again. And there is certainly that's a way to do it. But what the new talent is doing is they want to work for companies that are not silent. They want to work for companies that they can understand where they stand about things, companies that speak, that have a voice, that are present, that get interact, that use their resources not only to grow financially and have great results in the stock market, but also the companies that are coming into the communities, that are helping, that are having the empathy to use their resources to help other people to to have better lives. And that is the impact that we want to have. And then just I only have a few minutes, and Tamara and Sylwia to close, but I want to close also with when you talked about impact also, Alison, it reminded me of, sometimes I talk with people like in my training and they say, well, like I said this thing and somebody heard these other things. So they, they were upset because they said, but that's not what I intended. So a lot of training that is coming out right now that is really meaningful and very significant, relevant, is the understanding the relationship between intention and impact, right? And outcome, intention and outcome. And a lot of times we focus on the intention. It's like, that was not my intention. Yeah, like I caused all these problems, but that was not my intention. Well, intention matters, obviously, because that's kind of what you have in your mind and in your heart. But we cannot stop at intention. We also need to pay attention to impact, to outcome, right? What is the outcome that our intentions are, leading to? And actually be responsible and own the outcome as well. If I said something to you, I said it with the best intention, but I offended you, the fact that I offended you, I cannot disconnect myself from that. I have to say, hey, Ben, I am so, Ben comes to me and says, Luis, you said this thing that was offensive. Hey, Ben, when I was speaking to you, I intended to say this and that. I realized how, you took it this way, but, I really am sorry. Let's work, let's, like Tamara said, this relationship matters to me. I am really interested in working on this, because it's not okay to say that was not my intention, so that's not my problem. Even if it wasn't your intention, that is your problem, because if you caused it, you have to own it and then get on it. And then, so my advice to close today, my participation is, we are all good people. We're good people. We intend well, but we can all be better people. And how can we achieve that? Through what we share today. We can use the elements of emotional intelligence. We talked about self-awareness or self-regulation. We talked about internal motivation. We talked about empathy. We talked about social skills. Tamara did a great job talking about like mindfulness and how we can use that to improve our lives and our relationship with others. And I think that Sylwia was fantastic how she started the call today talking about the greatest love of all, which is the love that we have for ourselves, to love ourselves and to want to improve and be every day better, so that we can come out into our communities with our relatives, with our co-workers, and always have a good intention and look to have a good outcome as well. With that, I'll say thank you for joining us, and I'll let my peers close the call today. Sylwia.
Well, I was going to share that I really appreciate the idea of looking at intention versus impact. We're doing that a lot in our family and our interactions. It's like when discipline happens, like what was the intention behind that? But that doesn't give us the right to be overly forceful. We still need to consider our intention with that impact. The other thing in Alison's comment made me think about treating people as individuals. Like Sylwia has lots of clients that she connects with in Asia and Africa. These are continents that have a multitude of different countries and cultures, and even within those countries, we can't assume that people are some kind of stereotype. So this makes me really think about diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. The best way that we can be welcoming and inclusive is to see our commonalities, to understand that this person is just like me, and also acknowledge their differences as a person, not because of what they look like or what their background is. And I know that we just have one more minute, so I want to thank everybody for joining, and we will send a follow-up email tomorrow. So Luis and Sylwia will also share any links. Sylwia, anything you want to share in a minute to wrap up?
Yes, I would like to say, let's take responsibility for our actions and for our words. And when we did say or we did something what hurt others, let's say sorry. And although we didn't mention here forgiveness, let's also forgive to those who intentionally or not intentionally hurt us, because it is for us. And yes, what Lois, you said, let's not compare anyone, ourselves to anyone else, only to ourselves from yesterday to be better today. And yes, we all are unique and everyone is unique, and let's have respect for their perspectives, for their uniqueness, and still let's find commonalities for any relationship as well. We all have commonalities. And this is a great ground for finding how to improve the relationships. And what our guest said, Hank, about believing. Here I would like to say, first of all, my motto is believe in yourself. So the word believe, thank you, I love it. And let's believe that all people are good, because that's easier. So when we talk, when you start any conversation with a stranger, someone at home, let's do believe in them. That's how I would like to finish my word for today. Thank you very much, everyone who was here. Well, everyone who registered but was not able to join and will listen. Thank you, all of you, Tamara and Luis and Ben, and everyone who came here.
Thank you all for your engagement. We're going to end the call. Also want to thank Twin Cities Startup Week, who's hosting this event. And this event will be in their digital library if you want to catch the replay. Thank you all. We appreciate you. And we look forward to connecting. Take care.
I'm very happy to connect with you.
Great questions today. Thanks, everybody.